そして Mr. Richard Armitidge.
Konnichiwa. I was here in Tokyo back in 2000, and I'm so proud to come back in 2012 with these amazing people, with this film, which I think will really appeal to a Japanese audience. It has so many big themes that honor, loyalty, and it's just something huge for me, but I think it will be very well received here, and I'm really proud to bring it to you. Arigato. Having been a huge fan of the Lord of the Rings book and absorbing myself in the trilogy, one thing that you realize is that Peter's work is very, very unlikely to ever be remade in the future. And so when you're given the responsibility of taking on a role like Thorin Oakenshield, and I'm sure Martin felt the same, you understand that I would probably be the only person that ever plays this. And so to own that responsibility and come to New Zealand with all of those fears and excitement to do that will probably be the most memorable thing about the whole event. And it was probably the best year of my life and the best 18 months I ever spent working on any piece of work, regardless of the end product. The experience of sharing that with Peter and his team in New Zealand will be there in my heart forever.
Oh, I better answer this one carefully, hadn't I? I mean, just what my feeling is that when we're casting films, I want, in the film, I want a sense of truth and honesty with the performances, and I can say certainly with both Martin and Richard, and for that matter, everyone else in the cast as well. There has to be an absolute truth in what they're doing. It's not pretend or pretense. And I think that's even more special, it's even more important in a fantastical film, because if you're playing a hobbit or you're playing a dwarf, essentially there's a little bit of an alien creature there. I mean, they're very similar to us, but nonetheless they're not human beings. And so I think that the fact that we have to empathise with them becomes absolutely critical to the film. And in many respects, I mean, I look on the characters of Bilbo and Thorin as the heart and soul of the story, really. If Bilbo is the heart, then Thorin is the soul. And Richard, we auditioned the role, saw many actors, and Richard really managed to capture for us the very important, the sense of nobility, because he is essentially playing a king, but also the conflict as to whether or not he has the ability to lead these dwarves on this very difficult quest, a small number to fight a dragon to reclaim a homeland. That's a very noble thing that he's trying to do, and yet he doesn't really have the resources, if you like, to do this. And so it's a and also with the character, there's a sense of honour that Richard's, this sort of quiet honour that Richard carries, which I think is absolutely superb. And as an actor, Richard is one of those very, very rare actors in which he uses stillness and he uses quiet to draw your eye, that there can be a lot of things happening on the screen, there can be many characters on the screen, and yet Thorin, in his stillness, draws your attention. It's a very, very rare skill, and he's somebody when he's on screen that your eyes go to, that you want to watch.
It was very easy, actually, working with Richard. He is... I mean, what Pete said, actually, about what he brings to Thorin is partly what he brings just as a person, which is he has quiet determination. He respects himself and others, and he respects others' way of working, but he holds on to this very strong core of himself, actually. He's about the least arrogant person you could wish to meet. He's very self-deprecating, and he's always up for... I don't know, he's just up for what you're going to bring to the scene. I remember I went to the gym with him once, and there were a few of us there, and we had to do these circuits around the gym with this insane psychopath of a gym trainer, and I was busy dying about halfway round, and I nearly did pass out. I genuinely nearly it was only a sort of sports drink that stopped me from falling on the floor, and I looked up, and Richard had sort of quietly competed the entire circuit, sort of slightly breaking a sweat, and he sort of admitted that he was, he found it hard and he was finding it tired. But what I really admired about that was that he wasn't being macho and he wasn't being butch, but he just quietly got on with it. And that's kind of how he treated the 18 months of the job, really. All the trials and tribulations that inevitably come with just the day-to-day making of a film. It's tiring, you miss home, etc. He was very stoical about it, which again is a great thing for Thorin. So I think there was a good marriage of Richard and Thorin there, and I enjoyed working with him very much. I think what I always think about Richard is he is essentially a decent person, and I can sort of offer no higher praise to someone. I think he's a good human being, and I like being around them.
I always felt incredibly guilty that I didn't really socialise enough when we were working on this job, particularly with Martin, because he is one of the most entertaining people I've ever worked with. But I have to explain to you that the prosthetic is removed with alcohol, so if you consume too much alcohol the night before, the face falls off about halfway through the day, and you feel really rubbish all day, so I apologise for not coming out for a beer more often. But in terms of what I gained from Martin as an actor, there was one particular day, and it was in Bag End, it was my first day on the set, and Martin had been working with Andy for, I think, 2 weeks on the Gollum scene, and they were doing something which is called a rolling reset, and I watched Martin experimenting with a moment as a jazz musician would riff on a theme. And I remember being so impressed with it because it's actually quite a brave thing to do, because you sort of expose your process to everyone in the room. And I remember going away, and he'd sort of set the benchmark for me in the way that I would like to work for the rest of the film. And that set everything in motion, and I have such admiration for what he did on this film, and I think that character is going to live in children's hearts for a long time.